Mail-order bride's wedding day shock. Her rancher husband was a Lakota chief. Clara sat by the small wooden table in her tiny apartment, staring at the letters stacked neatly in front of her. Each envelope was from Samuel, the man she had been corresponding with for months. She had found his advertisement in a magazine about ranch life, a story of a simple man looking for a life partner. Clara was curious at first, just like any other young woman with dreams of adventure. She never imagined that answering a letter could change her life so completely. She picked up the first letter again, running her fingers over the folded paper. Samuel wrote about his life on a ranch in the West, describing rolling green fields, cattle, and quiet mornings with the sun rising over the hills. He wrote that he had lived alone for many years, taking care of the ranch left by his family. Clara felt drawn to the peacefulness of his life, so different from the noise and crowded streets of her small town back east.
Over the weeks, their letters became more personal.
Samuel asked about Clara's life, her family, her dreams. He shared little details about his daily routines, the chores he loved, and the animals that lived on his ranch. Clara felt as if she was already visiting him, walking through the fields and helping him feed the animals. She imagined herself waking up to fresh air, making breakfast for them both, and sitting by the fireplace at night, sharing stories of their day. The letters created a life in her mind that was almost tangible, and she began to look forward to the day they would finally meet.
Clara's friends often asked her why she was writing to a man she had never met.
"It sounds strange," her best friend Maggie said one afternoon. "How do you know he's even real?" Clara would just smile, hiding the flutter of nervous excitement in her chest.
"I don't know," she admitted quietly, "but I feel like I do."
She didn't mention that sometimes she stayed up late reading his letters over and over, imagining his voice and his laugh, imagining the man behind the words.
Weeks turned into months, and Clara began to make plans to leave.
The thought of moving across the country was terrifying, yet thrilling. She would leave behind her small life, her friends, her routines, and step into a world she had only imagined. Birth.
Her parents were supportive but cautious. "Make sure you know what you're doing, Clara," her mother warned, worry written across her face.
Petition. "It's a big decision to marry someone you've never met," Clara promised, though she didn't feel fully prepared to explain the pull she felt toward this man she had never seen. Packing was an emotional journey. Clara carefully folded her clothes into a small suitcase, making sure she had everything she might need for her new life. She packed letters from Samuel in a separate envelope, just in case she wanted to read them on the long journey. Every item she touched reminded her of home, but she placed them carefully in the suitcase, ready to leave behind the familiar for the unknown. She had dreams now, dreams that were alive and waiting for her on the other side of the country. When the day of her departure finally arrived, Clara felt a mixture of excitement and fear. She hugged her parents tightly at the train station, tears in their eyes. "Take care of yourself," her father said, his voice steady but emotional. Clara nodded, swallowing hard to keep herself from crying. She promised she would write as soon as she arrived. The train whistle blew, and with a final wave she stepped onto the train, clutching her suitcase tightly, heart pounding with anticipation. The journey was long and filled with a quiet sense of expectation. Clara watched towns pass by the window, fields stretching for miles, mountains rising in the distance. She read Samuel's letters again and again, imagining his voice in her mind, imagining the ranch, imagining him. She wondered what he would look like, whether he would smile like she pictured, whether his voice would match the warmth she felt in his words. Each mile brought her closer to the unknown, closer to the man who had lived in her imagination for so long.
When she finally arrived in the small town near Samuel's ranch, Clara stepped off the train with a mix of excitement and nervousness.
The air smelled different, fresh and wide open, a sharp contrast to the city air she was used to. She looked around for a familiar face, hoping to see Samuel waiting for her. Her heart skipped a beat when a man walked toward her, tall and strong, with a calm presence that immediately put her at ease. He smiled warmly, and in that moment, Clara felt as if she had known him her whole life. "Clara?" he asked, his voice gentle, yet firm. She nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "Best." Samuel extended his hand, and she shook it, feeling the roughness of a man used to working with his hands, a man connected to the land. "Welcome," he said simply, but Clara felt a rush of emotions. Relief, excitement, nervousness, all blending together. She followed him to his car, noticing how the small town seemed alive yet peaceful, a world so different from her own. As they drove toward the ranch, Samuel pointed out the landscape, the rolling hills and the streams that ran through his land. He spoke about his animals, his crops, and the quiet life he led. Clara listened intently, absorbing every detail. She tried to imagine herself living here, waking up to the sun rising over the hills, working alongside Samuel and becoming part of this life. The ranch was even more beautiful than she had imagined, with wide open spaces, animals grazing peacefully, and the kind of calm that only comes from being deeply connected to nature. That evening, Clara met Samuel's family. They were welcoming and kind, greeting her with warmth and curiosity. But Clara felt a little nervous, unsure of how to interact with them at first.
They asked about her journey, about her home, and about her life.
She answered as best she could, feeling both shy and excited. The family seemed pleased with her presence, and she began to relax, sensing that she was not just entering a marriage, but becoming part of a family. As night fell, Clara sat outside on the porch, looking at the stars above. The sky was vast and endless, and she felt a sense of freedom she had never known. Bays. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the letters, the dreams, the endless days imagining this life. She realized that she had taken a step into something new, something unknown but also something full of promise. Samuel joined her, bringing a cup of tea, and they sat together in comfortable silence. The kind of silence that speaks more than words ever could. That night Clara lay in her new room, listening to the sounds of the ranch, the lowing of cattle, the soft rustle of the wind through the trees, the distant call of an owl. She felt a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. But tomorrow would bring the wedding, and with it, the reality of her new life. She thought about the man she had married, the life they would share, and the adventures that awaited them. She felt ready, though a small part of her heart wondered what surprises the future might hold. As sleep finally claimed her, Clara dreamed of the ranch, of wide-open fields, and of a life filled with both challenge and beauty. She did not yet know that her journey had only just begun, and that the man she had imagined for so long held secrets that would change everything she thought she knew. But for now, she allowed herself to rest, to feel the excitement and hope of the life she had chosen, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Clara woke early the next morning, sunlight streaming through the window of the small guest room she had been given. The soft sounds of the ranch greeted her, the lowing of cows, the rustling of leaves, and the distant crow of a rooster. She stretched and sat on the edge of the bed, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Today she would meet more of Samuel's world and begin to understand the life she had stepped into. She had imagined what it might be like, but nothing could fully prepare her for the reality she was about to see. She got dressed carefully, choosing a simple dress that felt comfortable yet respectful. Samuel knocked gently on the door and smiled when she opened it. "Good morning," he said warmly. Clara returned the smile, feeling more at ease. He offered his arm, and together they walked toward the main house, Buth. The morning air was crisp and fresh, carrying the scent of hay and earth. Clara felt a strange mix of calm and anticipation, like she was stepping into a life that belonged to someone else, yet also somehow to her. When they reached the main house, she noticed details that caught her attention immediately. The building was large and well-kept, with wooden beams and a wide porch that stretched across the front. The walls were decorated with artwork, some familiar and some she did not recognize. There were framed photographs of people in traditional clothing, images of ceremonies, and symbols carved into wooden plaques. Clara stopped for a moment studying the images and asked softly,
These are beautiful. Are these your family?
Samuel nodded. Yes. These are my ancestors and our history.
It's important to us. His voice was calm, but there was pride in his tone.
Clara felt a flicker of curiosity. She had expected a simple ranch, but there was something deeper here. Something tied to a culture she didn't fully understand yet. She wondered what it meant, and whether she would be able to learn it in time. Inside the house, she was greeted by Samuel's family. They smiled politely, some with curiosity, some with warmth. Clara introduced herself, trying to remember their names and the proper ways to greet them. Breath. She noticed that some of them wore jewelry and clothing that was different from what she had seen before. Patterns, colors, and symbols seemed to have meaning she could not yet grasp. She felt a little nervous, unsure of how to behave, but Samuel quietly guided her, introducing her and explaining small gestures that were important. They served breakfast, a hearty meal of eggs, bread, and fresh fruit. As they ate, Samuel explained some of the customs of the family. Clara listened carefully, trying to understand the rules of respect and tradition. It was fascinating and a little overwhelming. She realized that there was more to this ranch life than tending to animals and fields. There was a whole world of history, ceremonies, and responsibilities she had never imagined.
After breakfast, Samuel suggested they take a walk around the property.
Clara followed him outside, feeling the warmth of the sun and the cool breeze. The ranch was much larger than she had imagined, with fields stretching for miles and a small forest at the edge. Samuel showed her the animals, explaining how he cared for each one. Clara listened and asked questions, trying to absorb every detail. Pet. She could see the deep connection Samuel had with the land, a connection that went beyond just work. As they walked, they passed a small structure where some of the family ceremonies took place. Clara stopped, noticing the intricate designs and symbols carved into the wood. She asked Samuel about it. He hesitated for a moment, then explained that it was a sacred place used for family and community gatherings. Clara nodded, feeling a mixture of respect and curiosity. She realized that she was stepping into a life that was rich with meaning, far beyond what she had imagined when she first agreed to this marriage.
Throughout the day, Clara met more members of the community who lived nearby.
Some came to help with chores, some to visit family, and all greeted her politely. She noticed how everyone interacted with Samuel, not just as a husband or family member, but with a kind of respect she had never seen before. There was a calm authority in his presence, a way that people listened when he spoke, a way they looked to him for guidance. Clara felt a mixture of admiration and nervousness. She wondered what it meant for her, as someone new and from a completely different world. By mid-afternoon, Clara began to feel tired. The day had been long, filled with new faces, new rules, and new sights. She sat on the porch for a while, looking out at the fields, trying to process everything she had seen. Samuel joined her, handing her a glass of water. "It's a lot to take in," he said softly. "Inspiration." Clara nodded. "Yes, it is." "I didn't expect all of this. It's more than I imagined." Samuel smiled gently. "I know it is, but you will learn, and I will help you. You don't have to understand everything at once." His reassurance made her feel calmer, and she began to believe that maybe she could adapt to this new life after all. As the sun began to set, Clara noticed the colors changing in the sky, painting everything in shades of pink and gold. The ranch looked peaceful and beautiful, almost magical. She felt a deep sense of awe. This place, this life, was so different from the small town she had left behind. And yet, there was something comforting about the openness, the connection to the land, and the way Samuel and his family lived with care and respect for each other in their surroundings. Dinner was served in the evening, a simple but delicious meal prepared by Samuel's family. Clara felt welcomed, even though she was still learning the customs. She noticed the careful way everyone handled the food, the way they spoke, the respect they showed each other. She realized that she was not just entering a marriage, but a community with values and traditions that she had never known. It was both exciting and a little intimidating. After dinner, Samuel suggested they sit by the fireplace. He told stories of his childhood, of growing up on the ranch, of his family, and of the land. Clara listened, fascinated by the depth of his experiences and the connection he had to his heritage. She realized that Samuel was more than just a rancher. There was a responsibility and a history that came with him, a life that had meaning far beyond what she had imagined when she answered his letters. As night fell, Clara went to her room to prepare for bed. She thought about the day and everything she had seen. She felt excitement, curiosity, and a touch of fear. Tomorrow would bring more experiences, and soon the wedding would take place. She wondered what it would be like to be part of Samuel's family, part of this community, and part of a life that was completely new. She knew that the path ahead would be challenging, but also beautiful. Lying in bed, Clara thought about the letters that had brought her here. She realized that they had only shown her a small part of Samuel's life, a part that was easy to share on paper. The reality was more complex, more meaningful, and more powerful than she could have imagined. She felt gratitude for the journey and a quiet determination to embrace this new world, no matter how surprising it might be. The night passed peacefully, and Clara fell asleep thinking about the fields, the animals, and the family she would become a part of. She dreamed of learning, of growing, and of discovering the depth of life she had stepped into. She did not yet know the full extent of the surprises waiting for her, but she felt ready to face them, knowing that this new life was full of possibilities, challenges, and unexpected joys. The morning of the wedding arrived quietly, with a soft light spilling over the ranch. Clara woke early, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. She sat on the edge of the bed for a moment, trying to calm herself, taking in the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch, the low calls of the animals, the soft rustle of leaves, and the distant flow of a stream. Today was the day she would marry Samuel, the man she had been writing to for months, the man who had become a part of her dreams. But now, as the reality approached, a small part of her heart felt a twinge of fear. She did not yet know how deeply this life would change her. Clara dressed carefully, choosing a simple but elegant gown. It was not extravagant, but it felt right for her, a reflection of her modest upbringing and her desire to be respectful of Samuel's family. Her hair was tied neatly, and she wore a small necklace her mother had given her. As she looked at herself in the mirror, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. From the letters she had written and received, to the long train ride across the country, to the first moments at the ranch. She had imagined this day countless times, but nothing could prepare her for the reality of standing in front of her new life. Samuel was waiting outside when she stepped onto the porch. He wore a simple but formal outfit, not the casual clothing she had imagined from his letters. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and he offered a gentle smile. "You look beautiful," he said softly. Clara blushed, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you," she replied, her voice quiet. She noticed the calm confidence in his demeanor, the way he carried himself with a quiet authority.
E had expected a simple rancher, but there was something more in him, a depth she had not yet fully understood. As they walked toward the gathering place for the ceremony, Clara noticed preparations she had never imagined.
There were decorations that seemed both natural and meaningful, with colors and symbols she did not recognize. She saw members of Samuel's community arriving, dressed in clothing that reflected tradition and culture, and Clara felt a mixture of awe and confusion. She had imagined a simple wedding on a ranch, but this was something different, something powerful and beautiful, yet unfamiliar. The ceremony began with a calm, respectful atmosphere. Clara took her place, hands slightly trembling as people gathered around. Samuel stood across from her, looking both proud and serious. As the officiant began to speak, Clara noticed that some of the rituals were unfamiliar.
There were moments of silence, moments of song, and gestures that carried a sense of reverence she could not fully understand. She tried to follow along, sensing the importance of each action, each word.
Then came the moment of revelation. The officiant spoke Samuel's full name and title, introducing him not just as her husband, but as a Lakota chief. Clara froze, her mind racing. She had expected a rancher, someone who lived a quiet life on the land, but this was something entirely different. She looked at Samuel, searching his face for a hint that this was a joke or a misunderstanding, but his expression was calm, serious, and proud. The weight of his role, the depth of his responsibilities became clear in an instant. Bow. Clara felt a rush of emotions, shock, awe, confusion, and fear. She realized that she was not just marrying a man but stepping into a role connected to a community, a culture, and a history she did not yet know. The realization was overwhelming, and for a moment she wondered if she could handle it. First, Samuel reached out and took her hand gently, offering a quiet reassurance. "I know this is a lot," he said softly, "but I will be with you every step of the way." The ceremony continued, blending elements she recognized with traditions that were completely new to her. There were songs, gestures, and symbols that spoke of family, community, and respect for the land and ancestors. Clara tried to participate, feeling the awkwardness of being unfamiliar with the rituals. Yet beneath the confusion, she sensed the beauty and meaning behind each act. She began to understand that this wedding was not just about two people, but about joining lives, families, and histories together. After the vows, Samuel and Clara exchanged rings, and she noticed how the community watched with respect and pride. Some smiled warmly at her, while others observed quietly, as if measuring her readiness to be part of this life. Clara felt a deep sense of humility. She realized that she had entered a world much larger than herself, a world where her actions and presence would matter not just to Samuel, but to many others. As the ceremony ended, Clara and Samuel walked together through the gathering, greeted by family and friends. People offered their congratulations, and Clara began to see glimpses of the community's warmth. She realized that, while the initial shock had been intense, there was also an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to become part of something meaningful. She took Samuel's hand more firmly, feeling a sense of connection that went beyond words. The reception that followed was filled with laughter, conversation, and music. Clara tried to engage with the community, asking questions and listening to stories. She learned small details about their culture, their traditions, and the importance of family.
Every conversation brought a new understanding, and she began to feel less like an outsider.
She saw the pride in Samuel's eyes as he introduced her to people, and she realized that she was being accepted, even if slowly. Throughout the day, Clara reflected on the journey that had led her here. The letters, the train ride, the first impressions of the ranch, all of it had been preparation for this moment. And yet the reality was more complex, more beautiful, and more challenging than she had imagined. She understood that her life was no longer just her own. It was connected to Samuel, to his family, and to a community with deep roots and responsibilities. As the sun set, casting warm golden light over the ranch, Clara felt a sense of calm settle over her. She had faced the shock of the wedding day, the revelation of Samuel's true identity, and the weight of his role as a Lakota chief. Psst. And yet she also felt a sense of awe and possibility. She realized that she had a choice to embrace this life fully, to learn, to grow, and to become part of something larger than herself. That night, Clara lay in bed, thinking about the events of the day. She thought about Samuel's words, his calm reassurance, and the warmth of the community that had welcomed her. She knew that the days ahead would bring challenges, learning traditions, understanding responsibilities, and navigating her new role. But she also knew that she was not alone. Samuel would guide her, and together they would face whatever came next. Clara closed her eyes, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and excitement.
The shock of the wedding day had passed, replaced by a quiet determination.
She understood that life was full of surprises, and sometimes those surprises could change everything. She felt ready to take the next step, to learn, and to grow in a life she had never imagined. And as sleep claimed her, she dreamed not just of a simple rancher, but of the man she had married, the community she was joining, and the journey that lay ahead.
The morning after the wedding, Clara woke feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The events of the previous day still ran through her mind, the ceremony, the revelation about Samuel, and the beauty of the rituals she had witnessed.
As she sat on the edge of her bed, she realized that her life had changed completely. She was no longer just a visitor on the ranch. She was now part of Samuel's family, part of the community, and part of a culture she had only begun to understand. Clara dressed carefully, choosing practical clothing that would allow her to help with chores, while also showing respect for Samuel's family. She wanted to do her best, to be seen not just as Samuel's wife, but as someone who was willing to learn and be part of their life. When she stepped outside, the morning air was cool and crisp, and the ranch looked peaceful under the rising sun. Samuel was already outside tending to the animals. He smiled when he saw her and waved her over.
"Good morning," he said gently. "I thought we could start the day together, and I can show you some of the work I do around the ranch." Clara nodded eagerly, feeling both nervous and excited.
She followed him as he moved through the fields, showing her how to feed the animals, check the fences, and care for the land. At first, everything felt unfamiliar and difficult, but Samuel was patient. He guided her hands, explained the work step by step, and encouraged her whenever she struggled. As the morning passed, Clara began to notice small details about the ranch she had not seen before. The way Samuel spoke to the animals, the way he treated the land with care, and the way his family approached their tasks with quiet respect. It was clear that this life was about more than just work. It was about responsibility, respect, and connection. Clara felt a growing admiration for Samuel, realizing that his calm confidence came from years of dedication and understanding.
By midday, Samuel suggested they take a break.
They sat under a large tree near the stream, enjoying the shade and the sound of water flowing. Clara asked him more about the traditions she had seen during the wedding. Samuel spoke gently, explaining the meaning behind the ceremonies, the importance of family and community, and the responsibility he carried as a Lakota chief. Clara listened carefully, feeling a mixture of awe and humility. She realized that being his wife meant more than sharing a home. It meant understanding, supporting, and being part of a community with deep roots. The afternoon was filled with introductions to more members of the community. Clara met people who had lived on the land for generations, each with their own stories and roles. Some were elders who had knowledge of traditions and history, while others were younger families working alongside Samuel's family. Clara tried to engage with them, asking questions and listening to their experiences. At first, it was intimidating. She felt like an outsider, unsure of how to behave or what was expected of her. But the community was welcoming, and she gradually began to feel a sense of belonging. As the day went on, Clara learned about the ceremonies and rituals that were part of the family's life. She practiced small gestures of respect, observed prayers, and listened to stories about the ancestors. Each lesson brought new understanding, but also new questions. She realized that she had much to learn, and that adapting to this life would require patience, humility, and openness. Samuel was always nearby, quietly guiding her, answering her questions, and providing reassurance when she felt uncertain. In the evening, Clara helped prepare dinner with some of the women from the community. They worked together, sharing stories, laughing, and teaching her how to cook traditional dishes. Clara found herself enjoying the experience, feeling the warmth of shared work and connection. She began to understand that life on the ranch was not just about physical labor. It was about relationships, respect, and learning from one another. She felt a growing sense of pride in being part of this life. After dinner, Samuel invited Clara to join him for a walk. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink, and the air was filled with the sounds of evening, crickets, the gentle rustle of leaves, and distant calls of animals settling in for the night. Psst. Samuel spoke softly, telling her about the responsibilities he carried as a chief, the importance of listening to his people, and the balance he had to maintain between tradition and daily life. Clara listened, realizing that Samuel's calm demeanor hid a depth of wisdom and experience she had not yet fully appreciated.
As they walked, Clara reflected on her own journey.
She thought about the letters that had brought her here, the train ride, and the first days on the ranch. She realized that the life she had imagined in her mind was only a small part of reality. The truth was far richer, more complex, and more meaningful. She felt grateful for the opportunity to be part of it, and for Samuel's patience and guidance. Breaths. Over the next few days, Clara continued to learn and adapt. She helped with chores, attended small community gatherings, and observed ceremonies. Each day brought new challenges and discoveries. She struggled at times, feeling overwhelmed by the unfamiliar customs and responsibilities. But she also experienced moments of joy, connection, and understanding. She began to see that this life, though different from what she had imagined, was full of beauty and purpose. Clara also began to develop deeper relationships with Samuel's family. They shared stories, advice, and laughter. She learned how to communicate respect and understanding, how to observe traditions, and how to participate in the life of the community. Breaths. Slowly, the initial fear and uncertainty began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of confidence and belonging. She realized that she was not just adapting to a new life. She was becoming part of something greater, something meaningful and lasting. One evening, Clara sat by the fire with Samuel, reflecting on her experiences. "It's a lot to learn," she said softly. "Bess." Samuel nodded. "Yes, it is, but you are doing well. You are patient, respectful, and willing to learn. That is what matters most." Clara felt a sense of relief and pride. She realized that she did not have to understand everything immediately. She only had to be open, willing, and ready to grow. As the days passed, Clara began to notice changes within herself. She felt stronger, more confident, and more connected to the world around her. She found joy in small tasks, in the quiet moments, and in the relationships she was building. She discovered a sense of purpose and belonging that she had never known before. Bess. Life on the ranch was not always easy, but it was rich, meaningful, and full of lessons that she was eager to learn. By the end of the week, Clara felt a deeper connection to Samuel, his family, and the community. She understood that her journey had only just begun, but she was ready to face the challenges ahead. She realized that being part of Samuel's life meant more than sharing a home. It meant sharing responsibility, understanding culture, and contributing to something larger than herself. She felt a quiet determination to continue learning, growing, and embracing the life she had chosen. That night, Clara lay in bed, reflecting on the week's experiences. She thought about the beauty of the land, the warmth of the community, and the wisdom of Samuel. She realized that her life had changed in ways she could not have imagined, and that the journey ahead would be full of challenges, discoveries, and growth. She felt ready, not just for the life she had married into, but for the person she was becoming. Stronger, wiser, and deeply connected to the world around her. As sleep claimed her, Clara dreamed of fields, animals, and community gatherings. She dreamed of learning traditions, understanding responsibilities, and finding her place within this rich and vibrant life. And she knew that, despite the challenges, she had made the right choice. Her life was no longer just her own. It was part of something greater, something beautiful, and something she was ready to embrace fully. Clara woke to another quiet morning on the ranch, but today felt different. The air seemed warmer, the sun brighter, and the sounds of the animals more comforting. She stretched and smiled, realizing how much she had changed in the past few weeks. What had once felt unfamiliar and intimidating now felt like a world she could belong to. The lessons, the rituals, and the small daily tasks had become part of her routine, and she felt a growing sense of confidence she had never known before. Bess. She dressed carefully and walked outside, where Samuel was already tending to the fields. He looked up and smiled, the same calm reassurance he had given her since she arrived. "Good morning," he said. "Ready for the day?" Clara nodded, feeling a sense of warmth spread through her chest. She realized that the simple greeting carried more meaning now. Part of it was familiarity, part of it was comfort, and part of it was connection. She was no longer an outsider. She was part of this life, part of Samuel's world. The morning passed in quiet work. Clara helped feed the animals, repair fences, and tend to the crops. Each task was familiar now, no longer intimidating, and she found satisfaction in seeing the tangible results of her efforts. She began to notice patterns in the work and understood the balance between labor, care, and patience. Samuel watched her quietly, offering guidance only when necessary. Clara appreciated his trust, realizing that he believed in her ability to adapt and grow.
Later in the morning, Samuel invited her to join a small community gathering at the edge of the ranch. The elders were present, along with families and children from nearby lands.
Clara felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had participated in smaller gatherings before, but today felt special. Samuel introduced her with pride, acknowledging her efforts and her growing understanding of the traditions. Clara felt a wave of gratitude and humility. Best.
She realized that the community had not only accepted her but also recognized her as someone willing to learn and contribute. During the gathering, Clara observed the ceremonies carefully.
She now understood the gestures, the songs, and the meanings behind the rituals. She participated respectfully, her actions guided by Samuel's subtle cues and the examples of the elders. She felt a deep sense of connection to the people around her, and with each passing moment, the fear she had felt when she first arrived began to fade completely. This was no longer foreign to her. It was becoming a part of who she was. The children were curious about her and approached with shy smiles. Clara knelt to talk with them, laughing softly as they asked questions about her life and shared stories about theirs. She felt joy in these simple interactions, realizing that connection was at the heart of this community. She saw how Samuel's role as a chief was not just about authority, it was about care, guidance, and nurturing relationships. She began to understand the depth of responsibility he carried and felt honored to share in that life with him. After the gathering, Clara and Samuel walked back toward the ranch. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. They walked in silence for a while, enjoying the beauty of the evening. Clara felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. The challenges she had faced, learning traditions, adjusting to new responsibilities, and overcoming her initial fear, now felt like small steps that had led her to this moment. She realized that she was not only adapting, she was growing, learning, and becoming part of something meaningful. Back at the ranch, Clara helped prepare dinner with Samuel and his family. She laughed as she worked alongside them, sharing stories, learning new recipes, and practicing the small rituals of hospitality that were so important to the community. She felt pride in her ability to contribute, knowing that she was no longer just an observer but an active participant in the life she had entered.
The work, the shared laughter, and the sense of accomplishment filled her with a quiet joy she had never experienced before.
That evening, after dinner, Samuel and Clara sat together on the porch. The stars twinkled above, and the night air was cool and gentle. Clara reflected on her journey, the letters, the long train ride, the first shocking revelation on their wedding day, and the days of learning and adaptation that had followed. She realized that she had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident. Best, she had learned patience, respect, and the importance of community. She had learned about Samuel, not just as a husband, but as a leader, a guide, and a man deeply connected to his people and his land. Samuel took her hand and smiled. "You have done so well," he said softly. "I am proud of you." Clara felt a warmth in her heart, a sense of accomplishment and belonging. She realized that she had earned her place in this life, not because it was given, but because she had worked to understand, learn, and embrace it. She looked at Samuel, seeing the depth of pride and love in his eyes, and felt a connection stronger than anything she had known before. As the days turned into weeks, Clara continued to grow into her new role. She participated in community meetings, assisted with ceremonies, and supported Samuel in his responsibilities as a chief.
She learned to balance her own needs with the needs of the community, understanding that her actions and presence mattered. She found joy in teaching the children, sharing stories, and helping the families around her.
Her life had become rich, meaningful, and full of purpose far beyond the simple dreams she had once held. Clara also discovered a new sense of identity. She was still herself, with her own dreams and personality, but she had added layers of understanding, respect, and connection that made her stronger and more complete. She realized that life could surprise her in ways she could never have imagined, and that those surprises could bring growth, fulfillment, and unexpected joy. She had entered this life uncertain, anxious, and naive, but she emerged resilient, confident, and deeply connected to the people and the land around her.
One evening, the community gathered for a celebration.
Clara participated fully, helping with preparations, joining in songs, and observing traditions she now understood and respected. She felt pride and belonging,
knowing that she had become an accepted and valued member of this community.
She watched Samuel, proud and serene, guiding his people with care, and she realized that her journey was intertwined with his, that their lives had merged into something meaningful and lasting.
As the celebration continued, Clara felt a sense of fulfillment that was hard to describe.
She had faced challenges, overcome fears, and adapted to a life that had once seemed impossible. She had learned about love, respect, responsibility, and the power of community. And she had discovered that true belonging comes not from familiarity, but from openness, patience, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. That night, Clara lay in bed, thinking about her journey. She realized that she had grown in ways she had never expected. The letters, the train ride, the wedding day shock, and the weeks of learning had all led her here, to a life full of meaning, connection, and love. She felt gratitude for Samuel, for his patience, and for the community that had welcomed her. She knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but she also knew that she was strong enough, capable enough, and ready to face whatever came next. As sleep came, Clara dreamed of the ranch, the community, and the life she had built. She felt pride, joy, and a deep sense of belonging. The journey that had begun with a letter and a simple hope for adventure had led her to a life of richness, purpose, and love. And she knew that she had not only found a husband and a home, but also herself, a woman who had embraced the unknown and discovered the beauty of life in its fullest, most meaningful form.